Electoral processes should be easily accessible to special interest groups, especially persons with disabilities, nursing and pregnant women, and the elderly. The accessibility should focus on the location and the priority and assistance while undertaking the process. Based on the observation reports, 44% of the 50 observed centers could only be accessed by steps or stairs with no ramps or lift present. This made the accessibility of the centers by persons with disabilities challenging, more so for those with mobility challenges and using wheelchairs. Additionally, CHISANKHO Watch also noted that in 66% of observed registration centers, the registration with disabilities to register, while in 4% there was no support. In the remaining 30% of the registration centers, no persons with disabilities were registered during the observation days. Special arrangements, including dedicated seating and priority registration for the special interest groups, pregnant and nursing mothers, persons with disabilities and elderly, were made in 54% of the observed registration centers, with 17% having no special seating. Accessibility of voter registration exercise to special interest groups. The center was only accessible by using steps or stairs with no ramps or lift. In phase 1, 47%, phase 2, 52%, phase 3, 44%. Registration staff assisted persons with disability to register. Phase 1, 61%, phase 2, 65%, phase 3, 66%. There were special arrangements, including seating and priority registration for the special interest groups. In phase 1, 66%, phase 2, 71%, phase 3, 54%. Potential registrants not allowed to register. During phase 3 observation, 42% of the reports indicated that at least one or more potential registrants were turned away and not allowed to register as voters. Similar to phase 1 and 2, observers reported that many of these instances were for new ID registrants whose names did not reflect on the MEX EMD devices following their fresh registration for national ID by the NRB. Additionally, there were a few instances where potential registrants arrived after the registration center had closed for the day. Instances where some registrants will not have attained 18 years by 16 September 2025. And instances where potential registrants showed up at the centers without identification documents from NRB. In another instance, the registration process failed to take place because the EMD and the backup froze, preventing registration. Registration rate. Based on phase 3 observation reports, an average of 110 voters were registered daily at the centers observed. Of these registered voters, 56% were women and 2% were persons with disabilities. Average daily registration rate in observed registration centers across the regions in the 3 phases. Central, on average, phase 1, 117, phase 2, 105, phase 3, 164. Northern, on average, phase 1, 48, phase 2, 34, phase 3, 76. Southern, on average, phase 1, 117, phase 2, 124, phase 3, 90. Average in all observed registration centers, phase 1, 105, phase 2, 99, phase 3, 110. Security at registration centers. Security personnel at the registration centers ensure the safety of all persons and registration equipment. Similar to phases 1 and 2, CHISANKHO Watch observers reported that security personnel were deployed to all the registration centers during the phase 3 observation exercise. Election management devices. The observers reported that the MEC officials diligently adhered to the prescribed procedural guidelines for the utilization of electronic management devices. The registrants' photographs and fingerprints were captured using these devices at all observed registration centers. Moreover, the processes for affixing registration slips to the Malawi Electoral Commission physical register and distribution voter registration slips were observed in all registration centers. Furthermore, in all, 100% of registration centers observed that the registrants affixed their signatures on the physical register. Despite this, there were isolated instances where the EMDs had challenges functioning. In one instance, the EMD froze, requiring the use of the backup kit. In another instance, it took longer than expected to recognize the fingerprints of several potential registrants. Additionally, in another center, the EMD locked itself and could not function again, necessitating the use of the backup kit. Similar to phase 2, where 64% of reports indicated the availability of technical support staff on site, observers noted a consistent presence of technical support staff at 62% of the registration centers observed. This contrasts with phase 1, where technical staff were present in only 38% of the centers. CHISANKHO Watch compliments the efforts of Malawi Electoral Commission for such improvements. Stakeholders' participation. The presence of different stakeholders in observing the electoral processes ensures they are transparent and accountable to the citizens. The coalition observed the participation of different electoral stakeholders, especially political parties and civil society organizations. Based on the observer reports, an MCP monitor was present in 97% of the registration centers observed. DPP monitors were present at 84%, and UTM monitors were present at 60%. Other party monitors, not MCP, DPP, or UTM, were present at 46% of the centers observed, marking a significant increase from 26% in phase 2. Monitors from other parties held from the Alliance for Democracy Afford, Freedom Party, National Patriotic Party, National Democratic Party, NDP, People Development Party, PDP, People's Party, PP, United Democratic Front, UDF, and Independent. Citizen observers, the majority from the National Initiative for Civic Education, NICE, were present in only 21% of the registration centers observed, a further decrease from 36% in phase 2 and 74% during phase 1. Stakeholders' participation during observation: Malawi Congress Party, MCP, 86% phase 1, 87% phase 2, 97% phase 3. Democratic Progressive Party, 92% phase 1, 92% phase 2, 84% phase 3. United Transformation Movement, 62% phase 1, 55% phase 2, 60% phase 3. Other parties, not MCP, DPP, or UTM, phase 1, 60%, 26%, in phase 2, 46%, and phase 3. Other civil society organizations, observers, 74% in phase 1, 36% in phase 2, 21% in phase 3. Inclusion. In addition to observing the presence of the major stakeholders in the voter registration processes, CHISANKHO Watch also observed the participation of women as party monitors, CSO observers, registration officials, and security personnel. Based on phase 3 observer reports, 44% of the MEC registration officials and 18% of the registration supervisors were women. 52% of security personnel were women. 58% of MCP, 59% of DPP, 49% of UTM, and 67% of other party monitors, not MCP, DPP, or UTM, were women. 38% of the CSO's observers were also women. However, the data highlights several areas of concern regarding the inclusivity and accessibility of the registration process for persons with disabilities. Based on phase 3 observer reports, only 7% of MEC officials were persons with disabilities. Only 12% of political party agents were persons with disabilities. 66% of MEC staff assisted persons with disabilities as needed. And 54% of observers reported that information about the registration process was communicated in accessible formats to persons with disabilities. These findings underscore the need for enhanced inclusion in political participation, staff preparedness, and communication practices to ensure full inclusion and participation of persons with disabilities. Summary of critical incidents. During its phase 3 observation, CHISANKHO Watch recorded 29 critical incidents. Key among these were handouts to registration officials. CHISANKHO Watch documented and verified an incident at Nyamitutu Registration Center in Nsanje, where a member of parliament from the Malawi Congress Party distributed 10,000 kwacha to make voter registration staff. This action constitutes a breach of the Political Parties Act 2018 and Malawi Electoral Commission Code of Conduct and poses a significant risk to the credibility and impartiality of the Malawi Electoral Commission in overseeing the voter registration process. Harassment and intimidation of registration officials. On December 8, at demonstrating school in Lumbazi, Magweru constituency, near 15 individuals who came to the registration center after closing time threatened registration officials when asked to return another day. To avoid escalating the situation, the supervisor, party monitors, and security personnel allowed them to register, despite this being against standard procedures. Similarly, on November 29, at Mawero FP School Center in Lirongwe Likuni constituency, a commotion erupted when individuals were denied registration because they were not registered with NRB. These incidents underscore the need for enhanced security measures, strict enforcement of registration protocols, and enhanced voter education on the procedures and registration time. Protracted instances of undue coercion and inducement of citizens to register. During this phase, CHISANKHO Watch continues to document incidents of undue coercion and inducement of citizens during voter registration. Verified reports in Lilongwe Likuni constituency revealed that an MCP member of parliament distributed cash handouts and soya pieces to potential registrants. Additionally, the MP promised access to loans through the National Economic Empowerment Fund and distributed 5,000 kwacha to registrants on another day. In Lilongwe cities, Mtandire, Msiriza constituency, and Lilongwe Demera constituency, MCP politicians offered 2,000 kwacha, 1,000 kwacha, and soya pieces to registrants. Similar instances of coercion and inducement were recorded during the first and second phases of the voter registration exercise in Nkhotakota, Salima, Nchisi, Nhatabe, and Mchinji. These practices raise serious concerns among voter bribery. Continued gaps in National Registration Bureau registration. Throughout the registration process, CHISANKHO Watch identified notable challenges with the NRB that hindered the ability of individuals to register. At Mawero FP School Center, participants who registered for national IDs issues between April and May found their names missing from the system. And similar issues were noted at Kavieyo FP School Center, where 4 potential registrants without national IDs or with incomplete NRB forms, such as those lacking photos, were turned away. These challenges tally with broader systematic issues observed in the second phase, where 175 potential registrants at Bangwe Catholic Primary School in Blantyre and over 500 at Southern Lunsu Primary School in Blantyre Southwest constituency were unable to register due to discrepancies between NRB and MEC databases. These gaps highlight the urgent need for better synchronization of efforts between NRB and MEC to ensure the inclusion of all eligible voters. Disruption of voter registration due to heavy rains. The third phase of voter registration saw instances where heavy rains disrupted the process. Baura FP School in Mzimba, for example, was paused after heavy rains, and strong winds damaged the class block used for registration, blowing off its roof. The session was suspended as the downpour continued beyond 16 hours closing time. In Lilongwe and some parts of Palombe, CHISANKHO Watch observed low turnout due to heavy rains. Continued misinformation and disinformation. CHISANKHO Watch continues to record and verify the increasing spread of misinformation and disinformation by political parties, which continues to undermine the voter registration process. In phase 3, it observed allegations of rigging raised by the opposition in parliament, citing incidents such as buying voter cards and multiple registrations. These claims emerged following reports of political parties' allegations that NRB printed extra IDs at the NFRA warehouse in Lilongwe. While there has been sufficient evidence to the contrary, some members of the opposition have continued to advance a narrative that discourages eligible voters from taking part in the registration process. This surge in misinformation builds on CHISANKHO Watch's earlier observations of similar trends, which have negatively impacted community trust and willingness to register. Conclusion. To conclude, the third phase of the voter registration exercise, as observed by CHISANKHO Watch, highlighted the Malawi Electoral Commission's efforts to conduct the voter registration process in the designated districts successfully. Notable improvements were observed in the opening times of registration centers, the application of registration procedures, and the operations of the electoral management devices. CHISANKHO Watch also commends the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare for its efforts to reach out to CHISANKHO Watch to understand the Phase 1 and Phase 2 findings regarding the politicization of social protection programs. CHISANKHO Watch celebrates responsiveness and collaboration for effective electoral governance. However, it is concerning that the voter information campaigns conducted by MEC, NICE, and civil society organizations decreased during this phase. Additionally, this phase experienced more incidents than previous ones, with reports of voter bribery, particularly attempts to compromise voter registration officials and party agents, and the continued trend of misinformation and disinformation. These occurrences suggest, despite desperate and last-minute attempts by political parties to undermine the integrity of the voter registration process. CHISANKHO Watch notes and re-emphasizes its recommendation in its Phase 2 report that the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties strengthen enforcement mechanisms to address voter bribery and undue coercion, as outlined in Section 41 of the Political Parties Act 2018. Additionally, CHISANKHO Watch highlights that registration challenges with the NRB persist despite previous recommendations to the NRB and MEC for system improvements and better coordination. CHISANKHO Watch notes that the MEC plans to extend voter registration in certain districts following the third phase, especially in the Phase 1 districts, in response to the court ruling. CHISANKHO Watch recommends that the MEC finalize and communicate these plans to all stakeholders promptly to ensure a smooth and efficient process and full participation by citizens concerned. CHISANKHO Watch will compile a final report that analyzes the results from all phases and any possible extensions which will be shared in due course. In the meantime, CHISANKHO Watch offers the following recommendations to guide any mop-up registration efforts. Recommendation 1 to Malawi Electoral Commission: enforce disciplinary action against staff found accepting handouts from political operatives or engaging in unethical behavior, and uphold registration protocols without exceptions. The act may impact the integrity and perception issues of the citizens. Enhance the training of security officers at the registration centers toward conflict mitigation and management. Ensure that the registration centers are located in locations that are easily accessible to persons with disabilities. Block 2 on recommendation to National Registration Bureau: improve data synchronization between NRB and MEC to ensure all eligible voters are captured. Conduct system audits to fix database errors and ensure accurate records. Ensure timely updates between NRB and MEC databases during registration. Make sure that every MEC center can register with NRB for potential registrants who are yet to register with NRB. The third block of recommendation to Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. Strengthen enforcement mechanisms to address voter bribery and undue coercion as outlined in Section 41 of the Political Parties Act 2018. The fourth block of recommendations to political parties. Ensure internal mechanisms to confirm facts before making public statements. This will in turn help limit the instances of misinformation and disinformation in the processes. Political parties are the biggest beneficiaries of the participation of large numbers of citizens, and as such, we recommend them to promote voter engagement towards the electoral processes instead of discouraging the process. A block of recommendation done, and now we talk about CHISANKHO Watch. CHISANKHO Watch has also a task to ensure credible and transparent, inclusive and peaceful elections in Malawi. The Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace, the Public Affairs Committee, the Gender and Justice Unit, and the Meeting Hub launched this CHISANKHO Watch Coalition, a citizen-led, non-partisan election observation coalition. CHISANKHO Watch promotes meaningful citizen participation in electoral processes throughout evidence-based, innovative and sustainable observation methodologies for Malawians. The coalition will observe major electoral processes leading to 2025 Malawi electoral general elections. Thank you very much for your attention. This is the end of our press statement.
Thank you very much, Father Mukandawire, for that comprehensive statement. At this point, the floor for questions. If you have any question, just raise your hand, and once acknowledged, kindly introduce yourself and the media house you represent before asking the question. Media, if you have any questions. We're going to take the questions in sets of 3. Yes.
My name is synchronization from the Truth Malawi. Okay, most of the challenges and recommendations are almost the same of previous phases 1 and 2. So I just wanted to hear from you how far do you go to make sure that the stakeholders implement according to your recommendations.
Any other questions?
just as our name stipulates, is to watch. We are not an enforcing agent. It's not in our mandate to act like a law enforcer. But as you can read through our recommendations, we are actually asking those that are mandated to act. Malawians then know the role of NRB, what they should do, and if at all there is an intention, this is what we expect NRB to do. If there is an extension, this is how we expect people that deal with the electoral process like make. This is what we expect them to do. But there is something that probably can be followed up by the registrar of political parties and the powers that they have been given when there is a misconduct of these political parties and probably MPs. We can only ask them to do their work. Who is supposed to enforce those particular rules and regulations? Those are the people that we are asking now. It's up to Malawians to know. As CHISANKHO Watch, we noted that there was a discrepancy, there was a need here that needed to be rectified, and going towards 2025 elections, if these things are not rectified, we are actually flagging a warning sign that we may be having elections that are fraud, and the people that should bear the blame are these particular institutions that we have actually mentioned. That will be my initial response, and if my colleagues would want to respond to it, please feel free to do so. Any of the board members, if you feel like you need, or you do. They are okay with how I've responded to.
I am okay too, but let me just make this quick statement following the response from our chair. This is not just to you as media people, but to all Malawians, as individuals, as well as institutions. It is very important to listen actively, and it is very important to act on the positive voices from the people. If we have to move forward, if we have to progress, not only in the area of elections, but in everything, listening actively and acting on the positive, constructive voices from the people is very, very important. So failure to act on the recommendations that are representing the voices of the people in a constructive way, failure to do that is a recipe for and for disaster. So it is important to listen, and it is important to take on board the recommendations that are made, as individuals as well as institutions.
EMDs that did not work compared to other phases. The issue of NRB, the registration not working so well with the make equipment. These are some of the things that we have observed. And as CHISANKHO Watch also alluded to the fact that in phase one, there were actually many challenges. In phase three, people that were returned for various reasons. In other cases, 500 people that were turned out that they could not register for various reasons. These are things that MEC should consider case by case, and not all phases require the same kind of time. But looking at the kind of challenges that they have faced, MEC should indeed consider extending some of these registration in some of these areas. It is very critical that those that should vote, register and vote, are given the chance to do so. It is their constitutional right, and especially those that were turned away and could not register, not because of their own fault, but because of rains and other things. There should be a consideration. Having said that, we have also said and appealed to political parties. Issues of misinformation and disinformation has been one of the hindrances to the registration process. On one hand, they would want to see people register. On the other hand, there is a lot of distorted information, negative actions, as we have indicated in our report, that actually is giving some people a negative feeling that they should not go and register. So we appeal not only to make to extend, but when make extends the days, if it does, would the political parties then be proactive, be positive, and encourage their members to go and register without bringing in a lot of confusion through misinformation and disinformation. At the same time, appealing to those that have got the power to desist from bribery, bribing the voters that would be registering to vote. These are very, very critical issues that we are bringing forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bishop. If there is any other question, maybe before we go.
My name is Margaret Mabando from MBC. Mine is not a question, but I would love if you summarize in Chichewa just a bit, if that's possible.
Anything else?
Maybe mwina kungo afusa rongwatu. Is it possible to do that during the interview, one-on-one interview, to do that? Maybe we can do that during that time. Yeah, sure.
All right, I believe there are no more questions. Thank you very much for the questions that have been given and for engaging in this important meeting. To conclude, I would like to thank everyone for attending this press conference and contributing to the dialogue. May I now invite Mr. Elijah Mkandawire to close with a word of prayer.
Right, let us pray. Father, in the name of your Son Jesus, we say thank you because of your goodness and kindness that you have really demonstrated to us as we asked you at the beginning that you should be with us, and as we prayed for the successful implementation and execution of our press briefing. That's exactly what has actually transpired here. We thank you for every information that has been shared. We thank you for the thoughts, opinions, and ideas that have also actually circulated in this room. And we pray that all the media houses, representatives, as they'll be disseminating this information to the public, the purpose, the aim, the objective of the entire press briefing will be achieved. And we continue to pray for our nation, and we continue to pray for the forthcoming elections that are going to be peaceful, credible, and quite accepted by all the key stakeholders. We continue to see Jesus in us glorified as we see us in you justified. Amen.
Thank you very much. I wish you all
kusekereke mu mzinda wa Lilongwe komwe gulu la chisankho chilimankhulapo pa nkhani zosiyanasiyana zokhuza chisankho chomwe dziko la Malawi likhale nacho chaka chamawa, komanso amankhulapo pamomwe gawo lachitatu lakalembera layendera mafotokozapo ndithu maka pa mavuto amene gawo limeneli lakumana nawo, akuti panali ziphuphu, ena abe kuvutika kulembetsa kamba kamavuto omwe anakumana nawo khudza ziphaso zaunzika, enanso madera ena akufotokoza kuti vuto la mvula linakhudzanso kumeneko ntchito yakalembera mu gawo lachitatu limeneli. Nde bwanji kuchoka muno mu mzinda wa Lilongwe tilekere pomwepa. Kuchoka kuno kusekereke munali ndine Kafe Maulidi komanso mzanga pamakina Haiten Chilemba komanso Khumbo Kaliwo.